What's up, everybody? It's your most power ranking show for week 16. Andrew Wiebe, Kalen Carr here to guide you through the top 10 from 10 to 1. Need to have an element of surprise here, folks, because number 1 has been the same for a couple weeks now. This is live on Twitter Spaces. So if you're watching on YouTube, just know every Tuesday at 11 a.m. Eastern on my handle at Andrew_Wiebe. You can see it right there. We go live. Today, Kalen, proud to have you with me. Normally, it's Matt Doyle. He's drinking Truth Serum, aka Cuban rum, somewhere in the Caribbean right now, but we'll be back very, very soon. And we're going to get started right now. Jeff Ruder, unmute yourself because Minnesota United are number 10. The Loons.
I'm sorry, quick question for you. You said that Doyle is drinking rum somewhere, but I saw him post a fleet. And if he's posting fleets on a vacation, I have some serious concerns about our friend.
I did see the fleet this morning, Jeff, and I thought that his, you have to question his judgment in that situation.
It's a dying form. It's not even going to be here for that long.
I appreciate you just taking us so off course immediately as we watch the highlights on YouTube of Minnesota's draw that felt like a loss, let's say, against the Whitecaps. And then there was a draw that felt like a win earlier in the week. Where do the Loons stand right now in your eyes?
I think that honestly, if you look at Minnesota United's course over I would say the past 2 months, you would say that they've been one of the better teams in Major League Soccer. I think that when you look at a ranking like this, you're going on current form, but there's always this cloud with everything that's happened this season of that 0-4 start that the team underwent, including a couple of home losses. And in those games, they lost so much of their margin for error. Where when you talk about 2 draws away from home, one feeling like a win, yeah, probably, but they got pretty lucky to be able to get that point against LAFC. But then the dropped point against Vancouver Whitecaps, you can show me the expected goals, you can tell me about the run of play, and I would tend to agree Vancouver was the better team on the night, and I think that they deserve to get at least something out of that. But when you drop those 2 points in such a fashion with that penalty kick at stoppage time, dubious as that call is, that is a massive blow to the team as they're looking to really establish themselves, get out of this group of chasers and wannabes on that playoff line and actually cement their place. Because keep in mind, the whole goal for the season was to get better. It was to improve off of finishing 4th in the Western Conference the last 2 years. It was to improve on choking in the final game in the Western Conference Finals before getting to MLS Cup and just standing at the doorstep of that and simply crawling into the playoffs with some of these sort of fluky, heartbreaking results. That just wasn't in the script for Adrian Heath's team this year.
Can you tell me where sort of Hunu and Fragapane stand? I mean, we know where Abula stands right now as far as what's going on, but as far as the sort of integration into the team, because you said it, this is a team that wants to be better than they were last year. They want the curve to keep rising. Those 2 guys are sort of, that's the fuel for the curve.
Right, and it looks like with Fragapane's leg muscle injury, I believe it's a thigh, he'll probably be out until late August. It sounds like guys in the locker room like him, but it sounds like the locker room actually really likes Adrien Unu, which is a good sign just in terms of trying to integrate him into the team. The hard part is that hasn't really translated to goals, and that striker position has been begging for a solution probably since 2017 after the team rode it out with Christian Ramirez for a year. Still the top scoring season that the club's had was his 13 or 14 goals in 2017. They haven't gotten anything out of a striker since. Angelo Rodriguez, Abu Danladi. 2019, who would have been the striker in 2019? I mean, this is just it though, right? It still would have been Rodriguez, and they've been really trying to find that solution up top. And coming into his time with Minnesota United, Adrian Heath was branded as the striker whisperer, right? For working with Dom Dwyer, CJ Sapong, Kyle Larin, being able to get a lot out of his kind of young proteges, and it just hasn't really materialized in terms of them being able to score goals. There hasn't been much of that sort of classic. The first good impression that Minnesota United made in Major League Soccer was that they were fun, that they could score goals, that Darwin Quintero was going to be able to run this 3-on-2 pick and weave and take audacious shots like Allen Iverson. And he just hasn't really been that guy. They haven't had that guy. And they haven't really had the players who are going to be able to work with Reynoso and be able to do that same sort of interplay. That's, to your point, what they were hoping to find with Unu and Fragapane, and they just haven't been available or in form since joining the team.
Jeff, I was a little surprised to hear you mention that 0-4 start to begin, and it seemed like afterwards they went on a good run, and then even in the past week it was a late result where you save a draw, and then another one where you concede. It feels like this team is still teetering in some ways. Is it going to kind of go on a run and go up, or is it going to maybe go down? What do you think has caused some of that inconsistency this year? And is it just the striker problem?
I think the striker problem is big, but I mean, to be fair, Kalen, they navigated it well last year. They really didn't have a starting striker at any point in the 2020 season, and they still almost made it to MLS Cup. I think that, and there's this part of it where they're looking, and there isn't a lot that's fresh just in terms of the culture being different. I think that they're still shaking a little bit of that hangover from last fall. I think that they're still figuring out, the best area of the field for them so far has been the midfield. And while that's really good in terms of keeping them in games, that isn't really separating them from the pack, because the attack isn't taking advantage of what's been a really strong midfield. I guess 5 players truly in the center of the park who are able to capably start there. They've had some defensive injuries as well. I mean, Michael Boxall is still out as well. And, they've had Makai Dabase and Brent Coleman, who've looked pretty good over the last couple of games at center back, but that wasn't the depth chart they would have gone in expecting to see. It's just these, a couple of these bounces, the excitement, it just isn't the same. This isn't the same sort of inventive, creative, motivated Minnesota United team maybe you've seen, but it's a very professional Minnesota United team. And I think that that's why you keep them in the chase. That's why you aren't counting them out and saying, this is a team that looks like they're going to trail off at the end. They look like a team that will make the playoffs even in a West on current form. It just doesn't quite seem to have that same sort of upside that we'd seen from them specifically since moving to Allianz Field in 2019.
2 draws this week, number 6 in the West, 23 points so far from 16 games, 10 in these power rankings. That's down 1 spot. Go follow Jeff Reuter. At Jeff Reuter there at The Athletic is where you can find his work. Jeff, appreciate you, man. We got to keep it moving to number 9 now. That is the Philadelphia Union. Danny Higginbotham is going to be with us here very shortly. Danny, when you can hear me, holler at me, man. Yeah. So, Danny, this is what they wanted me to ask you on Twitter, and it's what I want to ask. There seems to be a little bit of a malaise, man. Like, what's going on with the Union right now? The results just they're not there.
Yeah, I think when you look at this Philadelphia Union team, it's not a team that's built to necessarily come from behind. They're a team that like to counter-attack, and one of the biggest problems is they've been conceding the first goal a lot of the time, and that's been an issue. So they're giving themselves a mountain to climb, and I think teams are showing them a lot more respect now. I think we're seeing a lot of teams actually going up and setting up with a 5 at the back or a 3 at the back, whichever way you want to call it. Chicago did it, I think, the first time, and they ended up getting a 3-3 draw out of it. I think Nashville then went and did it, and a few other teams did it as well. And it's been a difficult sequence for the Union, because they're finding it a little bit more difficult to break these teams down that are just happy to potentially try and get a draw, or even then go and try and play on the counter-attack. And against Chicago in the recent 1-1 draw, the worst thing that could have happened, I know it might sound a little bit bizarre, was Chicago going down to 10 men, because then they became a little bit more defensively tight. They sat back a little bit more, and Union, as much as the player that they had in the second half, just couldn't find that final pass. There was just that missing piece. Ilsinho came on and looked lively, but they just found it difficult to get past Shuttleworth, who made some very good saves.
Danny, the other big question people are having right now is the status of Montero. Such an important player for this team, and now some question marks about whether he might go back to Europe. How important is he to this side, and do you think they could sort of withstand or continue to be the team that we've seen over the years without him?
I think it's obviously very difficult, because, as you quite rightly say, Montero is a key part of this team. I think when he plays well, the team plays well. Garsdag's come in. He's looked good in the number 10 position. I think he needs to be created a little bit more time and space by his teammates, making runs further forward. But as in terms of Montero, it's not just the fact of what he does on the ball, it's what he also does off the ball as well. He's one of the main players that starts the press. But he is one of maybe 2 players within that team that can unlock a tight-knit defence. And, you only have to go back to the previous game against Chicago, and you think to yourself, right, the situations that the Union found themselves in, if he was on the pitch, could he maybe have picked the pass? Could he maybe have found the pass against a very resolute and and strict defense? And the answer to that would probably have been yes. So obviously it's a real tough one, but I think with the Union side of things, they become a victim of their own success. What they did last season, winning the Supporters' Shield, obviously you've seen the success with Mackenzie going abroad, Aronson going abroad. So there's going to be teams that are going to be coming and looking at the players and thinking, right, okay, this team's doing really well. So there has to be reasons because of that. And yes, collectively as a team, they're excellent, but there's been some also very, very good individual performances, and Montero falls into that. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Obviously, regarding the Union, I would love it if he was to stay at the club. But you know, we all know how football can work. If clubs come in with the right amount of money, then it's very difficult for clubs to say no.
Denny, thanks for joining us, man. It's great to meet you virtually here, and I know these are quick, so we got maybe one or two more for you. I'm just curious, just because we haven't chatted, who this season has impressed you most on this team? Who's been the top performer in your eyes?
It's been. I'd probably say it's been two players that you wouldn't have said at the start of the season. So Leon Flock in midfield, he's been absolutely magnificent. He was brought in as a player that was going to probably just be able to fit in, whether it be on the left of the diamond, the base of the diamond, or at left back. And then he started the season and was near enough undroppable, probably one of the first names in the team sheet. Yes, he didn't play a couple of games back, but he's now back in the team. And also Bizo at right back, he's been absolutely brilliant. He's came in. Obviously, we know the situation with Ray Gaddis. He's a legend for the club on and off the pitch. But Bizo's coming. He's got a really good understanding with Bedoya going down the right hand side. So I'd say it would be those two, because obviously, you know, you can mention the likes of Blake, Glesnes, and Elliott in particular, and Martinez. But these are players that you would have expected to have good seasons because of the talent that they bring to the table. So the two players that I've just mentioned has probably been a little bit surprising, but a real positive.
All right, Danny Higginbotham. You can hear him every single week on those broadcasts for the Union. I appreciate you, man. This won't be the last time. We do this every week.
Perfect. Take care, gentlemen. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Philadelphia Union at 9. They're down 3 spots. Been a little bit of a slide for them. Let's go to number 8 right now. That is the LA Galaxy. Last week was LAFC rising big time. This week it's the Galaxy with a big rise. Mike Gray is with us. You can read him over there at El Trifico. Mike, I'm just kidding, man. But I had to sound it out for you. It's good to talk to you. You might still be muted.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no problem, man. Tell us what's going on with the Galaxy right now. This is a nice win. We're watching the highlights. We're watching the tribute, of course, to Jonathan Dos Santos' father and family. Yeah, this is a huge win, and Ryan Raveloson is just a goal scorer in Galaxy colors, huh?
Yeah. Somehow he's got 4 aerial goals in 6 matches. I mean, I'm sure it's going to trail off at some point, but I don't know how he does it, to be honest with you. It's he's gone off to a great start, but let's see.
Yeah, I mean, it's not in his historical DNA, let's say. If you go back and dig through some of his stats in his professional career, this is an outlier for sure. Can I just get you on the vibes with the Galaxy right now? I mean, the Greg Vanney vibes, the new Galaxy vibes, the modern feel that's come to the club.
Well, I think this is an opportunity for the team. Greg was emphasizing LA needs to make the jump from being just sort of a good team, a feel-good story with, Chicharito and the resurgence of the club and everything, to really making the jump to being a great team, an elite team, a team that, was ruthless. I mean, to be fair, the entire season, they really have yet to put together a consistent 90-minute performance from start to finish where the team's doing good. But this is a real opportunity. They're welcoming back Jonah, Seba, and Efra from the Gold Cup. And especially, 4 of their next 5 games are actually at home. So they've got a real opportunity to stack up points because, I mean, you've got LAFC, you've got Western Conference teams just sort of catching up. They're in 3rd, but they need to start getting points now because 5 of their next 6 after the homestand are going to be on the road. They're all Western Conference matchups, so they're all 6-point swings. And, I think that they need to end the season with some momentum. So,
can you tell us anything about the new Serbian striker that's coming in?
Reportedly, right?
Jovovic, yeah, he's a bit of a mystery. He's got he actually had a breakout season in 2020, 19 goals in the Austrian Bundesliga. He was supposed to be on a flight to LA yesterday, actually on the way here to do the paperwork. The Galaxy desperately need a second striker. Zubak is good and athletic, but they need someone who can finish. And Chicharito, it's a bit of a mystery with him because, he was supposed to be back by now. I think he's suffering a few setbacks. But, I mean, let's be honest. If Chicharito gets injured again, LA are in serious trouble. So I think an overabundance of caution is the right call here.
When you look at Kevin Cabral and Samuel Grandsire right now, there were some question marks, Mike, about how quickly they would adapt. And I think those were fair, and they're always fair for players coming into this league, especially in the timing and the time of, the period of society that we're in with the pandemic. It seems like they are getting traction. Do you see the same thing?
The Galaxy fan base is actually a little upset with Cabral. I don't know if you might have seen it, but he had a sitter. I think it was the 77th minute. Basically, he had an open net and...
Hold on, Mike. You guys win 4-1, and Galaxy fans are out here complaining about a sitter in the 77th minute? What is going on here?
This is the Galaxy community we're talking about here. We're never happy, all right?
All right. Apparently so.
But here's the thing with Cabral. If he was the finished product, he would have been a $15-20 million transfer. They signed him to a 5-year deal. I think that when the Galaxy were interested in him, this is a player that, I'm just looking to 2022 when it comes to his production. Right now, he's just getting his feet wet, new language, new club. He is struggling with the physicality a little bit, but I mean, if you want an example, look at Samuel Grandsire when he first came to the Galaxy. His first 4, 5, 6 games, he looked a step slow. He did not look comfortable. It just seemed like it was going to be a one and done, and now it's to the point where he's actually becoming a real fan favorite. And so I would suggest to people that have an issue with Cabral that just give the guy a little bit of time. I think he's going to figure it out. I do trust the Galaxy and the scouts, and he's really someone to look out for in 2022 more than this year. But yeah, I think he's actually. I don't think we have anything to worry about with him in the long term.
Talk to your people, Mike. Sounds like they're a little restless on this one. Need not be. The LA Galaxy up 4 spots to number 8 in these power rankings. Currently 3rd in the Western Conference. It has been a dream season.
I'm just happy you didn't ask any El Tráfico questions. So.
Yeah, we'll get to that, man.
Well, Mike, I do want to ask real quick though, because you mentioned Galaxy fans and being, spoiled, I guess, and the standard being pretty high here. What would be success for this team right now? 3rd in the conference right now, but looking like a good bet for the playoffs. But is that enough for the Galaxy fans, or what are people expecting? And I guess some of it hinges on Chicharito, right?
Yeah, making the playoffs is all you can expect given what the team looked like at the beginning of the year. I mean, Greg, a consistent thing in the locker room was that they had a goal for how many points they wanted to set at the beginning of the year, and we were asking Bond about it, and the one consistent thing is the players just laugh because they say, how are we going to get that many points? And apparently Vanny specifically said that they were 3 points away from that mark that they thought was incredibly ambitious. So he's done a fantastic job. I mean, look at Chicharito. You can't, given what the team looked like at the beginning of the year, what more could you expect?
I mean, that's basically where it's at. That's what I'm saying to you, Galaxy fans. I got my shrine right over here, and you're complaining about 77th-minute sitters in a game you won 4-1. Mike Gray, go check out eltrafico.com, at Mike Gray AFC on Twitter. Mike, appreciate you, man. Glad we made this happen. We'll do it again sometime, all right?
Thanks a lot, man. Take it easy.
Yeah, no problem. On to number 7, Colorado Rapids. They're accumulating international midfielders. Kalen, they got Kellen Acosta. We know how good he's been in the Gold Cup. Now they got Mark Anthony Kaye. Went out and spent a cool $1 million GAM on that, won an international spot. What do you make of what the Rapids are doing right now? And oh, by the way, not just 7th in the power rankings. We know that's the end-all be-all, certainly for some people in this league. But number 4 in the Western Conference, 1.8 points per game. That's incredible.
They're getting it done, and if you look at just the way that they've remade this club in the past year or two, they've gone out and gotten really good value. And this one is, I guess, a little bit more where they're going out, and Mark Anthony Kaye, I think they had to give up, a significant amount of allocation money. But at this point, it's pretty much a proven commodity and somebody that is going to fit into that lineup. Now, it sounds like there may be some offers as well. So Europe is a part of this to see, does Mark Anthony Kaye eventually go on? Does Kellen Acosta make his move finally to Europe? Or Cole Bassett? Like, they've got a lot of different options now. They're still I think they got the result this week with Shinyashiki, got the goal. They've got, a number of options. Barrios is always dangerous. So I think they've got a good thing. And, the further you go and you look at that midfield, you put that up there with those three together, you got to feel like that's one of the best center midfield pairings potentially in the league.
I mean, Kaye, Acosta, Bassett, Price. Price is their captain. We haven't even mentioned his name.
Right.
And Warner has got some good minutes, big minutes for them of late. I want to say this as we talk about the Rapids, and I don't think that we say it often enough. And I know folks in Colorado feel that, and a lot of people in markets do that. They just don't quite get the credit they deserve. The Colorado Rapids were basically an extra time laughing stock there. What was it? 2.5 years ago or so at this point, where they lost all those games, and Anthony Hudson was saying CCL is preseason, and it was bad. And they made a change, and that change resulted almost immediately in success on the field. But what I want to point to more is the inefficiency in MLS that Colorado are exploiting, and that is the internal market. And not a lot of clubs go all in on that. It's a lot easier. It's a lot sexier to say, man, we're going to be a team that signs 3 big DPs and watch us go ball out with our TAM, like put it in the air. Watch us go, sign a bunch of U22 kids, or maybe our academy isn't producing, but we're going to go accumulate foreign signings. The Rapids have found a way, and they found a strategy that works for them. And we'll sit on this show and we'll talk about the team and say, okay, well, they got to have a number 9. They got to go get a DP if they want to be elite in this league. Well, it turns out they don't. Look where they're at right now. Look where they're at right now with a bunch of guys that other teams thought were surplus to requirements or were willing to move on, or said, the allocation to allow us to go out and make a bigger move is more important than that particular player who's proven in the league. If you go through their starting lineup, and I'm not saying these are misfit toys by any sense, but Austin Trusty lost his spot in Philly. They paid a lot of money for Austin Trusty. He's an every game starter for the 4th best team in the Western Conference and is 22 years old. He's a left-footed center back. Like, that's an incredible pickup right there. And look at the rehab there. You get him with Robin Fraser. He's better. Kellen Acosta, wanted out of Dallas, didn't have love of the game. Look at him now. He's the best player of the U.S. in the Gold Cup. Certainly teams in Europe would have to look at him no matter what his age is. Barrios, okay, it was past his prime in Dallas. Time for Barrios to come in. Game changer in this team. Rubio, Sporting KC didn't need him. Well, guess what? Rapids did. Figured out he could be really productive, dropping back and letting those goal-scoring wingers push forward. Keegan Rosenberry from the Union, Lawless Abubakar from the Crew. You can keep going through this team and finding those players, and on the back end of all of it, are homegrowns ready to take over after that. Jonathan Lewis. I know Gold Cup's been a disappointment, but Jonathan Lewis can be a game changer in this team. So I just want to point out for people that maybe are like, man, how are the Rapids doing it? It's a market inefficiency that they're saying allocation money is more valuable to us to go pick up the likes of Mark Anthony Kaye than it is to go get somebody from a foreign club that we don't know how is going to integrate. We know Mark Anthony Kaye at 26 years old, a starter for his national team, attempting to qualify for the World Cup, a dog in the midfield. We know what he's going to be for our club. And
I'll be interested to see how this affects Acosta's position as well, because you mentioned you've got Price, who usually sits a little bit deeper, and then you maybe put Kaye there, and then does Acosta then play a little bit more of an advanced role, and how does that affect?
Remember the end of the good Dallas times?
Yeah,
he was scoring bangers.
But look at it this way though. I mean, he's also got for the national team, he's playing the 6th role. So does he want to play a little? I mean, the further away you move from that, now I know he's probably going to need to play a number of roles for the U.S. men's national team as well. But that's just an interesting one to watch. Is how does that midfield all fit together?
Here's what I'd throw out to you. I mean, they're going to be playing a lot of, between World Cup qualifying as well as the schedule that MLS has with a lot of midweek. Rotation is going to be necessary. The Colorado Rapids are no longer a club that's like, oh, let's please make the playoffs. I think they see themselves as, and the results do too, as a playoff team. So the more competition you have, the more rotation you have, should an injury come, whatever. Perfect. You need Jack Price to have a breather. Kellen drops in. Maybe Kellen's sitting more next to price, and it's more sort of like dual pivot as opposed to a 6 and 2/8. And Mark Anthony Kaye is a little bit further ahead, or maybe that's Cole Bassett because Mark Anthony Kaye just got back from international duty, and so did Kellen Acosta. Like the load here is going to be heavy. So I know I went on a little bit of a rant there, but I've been waiting to do that. The Rapids it's so quiet with the Rapids so often, but I think we got to give credit where credit is due. And we got to move on to number 6 now, and that is Nashville SC. Ben Wright is with us. Ben, are you there, man? Oh, I don't know. Oh, there he is. Did I not invite him to speak? Well, that's a failure on my part. Sorry about that, Ben. What's up? Yeah, no problem. A 1-1 draw in Toronto. That's a pretty good result for Nashville. I was looking through a lot of the stats. Nashville, best expected goals defensive team in the league. Nashville, I believe, the only team with a single loss in the league. Now 9 draws and 6 wins. So take that for what it is. How does it feel this year in Nashville? We talked about Minnesota United trying to level up. It feels like Nashville is leveling up.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it kind of feels almost the polar opposite of last year. I mean, you guys know as well as anybody just the struggles that they had to not just create chances, but to finish them last year was kind of a consistent problem throughout the first 2/3 of the season. And it really feels like they've kind of flipped that on its head. I mean, they've had a negative expected goals difference in just 2 of their matches this year. The loss to New York Red Bulls and then the 0-0 draw with Columbus. So, I mean, they're creating, I would say, as well as just about anybody in the league. I think the product on the field has probably been better than the results. They've had a couple. I mean, the early draws to start the year, they'll look back at those and really wish that they had taken 3 points from most of those. But I think overall, just the product on the field is trending up, and they have a heavy road schedule to finish out the year. But I think they'll feel pretty confident just throughout the rest of the year.
CJ Sapong, one of my favorite MLS players, has been finding the back of the net, finding form, and he's found a nice connection as well with Mukhtar. What's that connection? How have you seen that connection working out for Nashville so far?
Yeah, I mean, obviously he's found the score sheet a couple of times, but I think even more impressive than that, just his overall play has been fantastic. I mean, he's connected better than any of the other forwards on the roster so far. He's linked play really well. That whole front three has been really fluid ever since they switched to the back three formation, and so he's been able to kind of just pick his space. He, Mukhtar, and Leal will kind of shift positions throughout the course of the match, and it's really a pretty fluid front line. And I think he's really kind of taken some of the attention from the center backs off of Mukhtar and Leal and really just allowed them to get space on the ball. And I think, I mean, the results speak for themselves.
Robert Castellanos, man, what a story that is.
Yeah, found out he was starting an hour before the game, and then made the team of the week. I mean, you can't ask for much more than that.
It's his MLS debut, no?
First ever MLS minutes.
And scores a goal, gets the header. If you're watching on YouTube, you just saw that. I mean,
love a good long throw.
This is yeah. Come on, chuck it in there, baby. Maybe a flip throw. I don't think we'll see those ever again, but maybe a flip throw. Tell me about the center back situation right now, Ben, because we know that Walker left the Gold Cup. I don't know that I have the latest on what his issue is, but also sort of the strength in numbers that Nashville has been able to show this year in being really, I think, the best defensive team in the league.
Yeah, I mean, so Dave Romney obviously is other than Walker Zimmerman, he's the standout. He's played every minute for Nashville so far in MLS, and I think has been one of the more consistent defenders in the league. You know what you're going to get from him every game.
International trade market, folks. Just saying. Just want to rant about that.
So Romney is kind of the rock in defense. I would say probably even when Zimmerman's there, he's just consistent. He's going to give you a 7 out of 10 every week. Jack Mayer has really stepped up from last year. And in his couple performances, he made the team of the week as well. He got a goal and an assist. He's looked solid. He's kind of starting to pay off some of the faith the club showed in him when they drafted him. And then obviously Jaleel Anababa, who has been a reliable defender in the league. So those 3 guys have kind of stepped up without Walker Zimmerman. But then Castellanos, I think, surprised everybody. Just getting a start. I don't think many people would have expected him to start in his first year in MLS, but then the performance that he put in, I think, just was really impressive, and I maybe might earn him some playing time here in the next couple of matches.
Let's talk about Alistair Johnson. He had such a good Gold Cup. I mean, really a tremendous performance against Mexico in the semifinal, and then comes back into the side with Nashville and shows a lot getting forward as well. Had some nice balls forward and good crosses. Almost turned into some goals. Almost scored one as well against Toronto. Just in this last one, it was unlucky. How have you seen his development going forward?
Man, he just keeps getting better, and I think he keeps surprising me, which he probably shouldn't at this point because he's stepped up to really every challenge. But I mean, he came in, won the right back job for probably the best defense in MLS expansion history as a rookie. Now he's kind of turned into an almost every game player for the Canadian national team. I think he's going to be a lock in that starting lineup here for World Cup qualifying. And then he comes back just 3 days after playing 90 minutes against Mexico and looked really good against Toronto. I think he's probably a guy who's I think his time in MLS is probably limited, and I think his ceiling is high enough that he's probably going to end up in Europe here sooner than later. And it's just really, I mean, I think a good job showing kind of how the club has scouted college. They've got a bunch of production from draft picks, not just Johnston, but Jack Mayer, Luke Hawkinson. And I think those guys have really paid off and turned into not just contributors, but I think they're showing that they can be starting quality players in this team.
I'd throw Nunga in that category.
Yeah, absolutely.
As a guy who they found and has been really productive. And I went on the rant on the Rapids, and I think you got to go on a similar one with Nashville and sort of go back to their expansion build and offer some mea culpas, at least some of us do, about some of the doubts there, because this has really turned into a great sort of well-rounded project all around for Nashville, and the results are starting to show as well. And I got a big game on Wednesday. They're going to New England. We're about to switch it real quick off Nashville to Orlando and Julia Poe, but Ben, I got to ask you your quick take on this match and what it would mean if they go there and win.
I mean, if they go there and win, that would be massive. I think a draw in New England would be. I don't think anybody would be upset with that. They did beat them 2-0 the last time they played, but I think New England's just in a completely different place at this point. I think they're the best team in the league. So a point on Wednesday, I think, would be a very solid result for Nashville.
All right, Nashville, 6th in these power rankings, down 2 spots. That's kind of surprising. It was just a draw in Toronto, voters. Come on now.
Know, right?
3rd in the East, 27 points per game, just 1 loss in the season. Ben Wright, go follow him at Broadway Sports. And on Twitter, Ben, thank you. On to number 5, Orlando City. Julia Poe. Julia, I see you there. Unmute yourself whenever you feel up to it. Up 2 spots are Orlando. Midweek was, it was a big. I'm blanking on the results, Julia. Jeez, I had them on the edge of my mind, and now I'm lost here.
You are all good. It was that Friday night Atlanta United game.
Yeah,
with the 3-2 comeback.
Yeah, the Nani. That's what I was on. I was just blinded by my Joseph Martinez love for the first-minute goal. Can we just start with Nani? Like, this team has a history of big-time designated players. I'm struggling for a way in which maybe outside of like late-season swoon playoffs that Nani hasn't just completely delivered.
Yeah, I mean, and every single season, it seems like he's just kind of building on his performance. I think that they're figuring out not just how to bring in players that bring out the best in him, but also how to position longtime players like Chris Mueller, Benji Michel kind of around him, Tesho Akindele, really to just get the most out of him and to help him get the most out of his teammates. And, I think the question every year when we hit this point of the season is, okay, can he do this into the latter half of the season and into the postseason? And we've seen the answer be yes before, and I would not be surprised to see him continue this form. Every time that it seems like he's about to maybe dip off just a little bit, he comes back through with.
Oh, did we lose you, Julia?
Are you there?
Are you there?
There?
Game-winning
Hello?
goal or a game-winning assist. So
hey, Julia.
It's really hard to put into exactly what he has done for teams of everything that could have been done.
Hey, Julia, are you in a basement somewhere? I'm just asking because, yeah, you were breaking up on us, so we missed a good bit of that. So we'll hope that the reception solves itself. What is the state of this Orlando-Atlanta rivalry in your mind? Because it's been since 2019 since Atlanta had a regular season. I think just in general win over the Lions, it seems like sort of that bully role, that dominance is broken. Somebody's in like the Everglades right now, Kalen. What do you think about Orlando?
Well, Sorry, hopefully Julia finds her way back here. But no, this was a big result for them, not only just being a rivalry, but just coming off the game just before against New York City, where
that's really what it was. I knew it was a 5-0. I was like, what is the 5-0 that I'm thinking of here?
Yeah, they got just steamrolled as New York City, who we'll probably talk about pretty soon in these power rankings, or maybe not so soon. I felt getting a response, and then you go coming off that 5-0 loss at Yankee Stadium, and then conceding in the first minute to Atlanta United. That was like, oh no, is this going to get bad? This could get ugly quickly. And what is going on with this team? But they showed response. They responded well to that. And then Marcelino Moreno scores like an amazing goal. So, they had to continue to fight their way into the match. And then I just think, this team, kind of like Sporting Kansas City late on in matches, I think they're two probably the better teams that really start to apply pressure in waves. And when you have someone like Nani who's just kind of got that clutch gene as well to finish things off, it turns things around. Now they've got another match tomorrow. It looks like against Inter Miami. So if they can kind of carry that form, and then I think Cincinnati after that. So you'd have to think with the form that they're kind of in, and then who they're playing next, that there's some available points on the board for them to make some even more ground moving up the table.
I want you to imagine the rest of the season for Daryl DK in Orlando. Let's just say no sale this summer. Daryl's staying. He's the starter. Pato, whenever he gets back, and Doyle's going to laugh because I always got to mention Pato.
He hasn't played in
I know, man. I
since
know.
week one.
But you know what? Sometimes dreams are bigger than reality, Kaylin. Okay, all right. Sometimes I just want to see it. Okay. So plot it out for me. Daryl DK the rest of the year in your mind. How do you think it would go? How would you want it to go? I mean, obviously we want it to go well, but.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the status of any impending moves are. I'm not here.
We're pretending that it's not going to happen right now. In this alternative reality, it's not happening. He's with Orlando City. He has an opportunity to start and develop and, regain some of that confidence maybe he had early in the season.
Yeah, I think in some ways it could be a relief for him. He's just had so much attention, so much change in the past year for a player that is a new professional to go through this like amazing run at the end of last season, then immediately get this loan abroad. And then the way that happened was just sort of a whirlwind. And then there's conversations around how much money, rejected bids, potential bids, what's coming in. And then with the national team, will he get a shot? And then look, that ended up, I think, being somewhat of a disappointment to his expectations, I'm sure. And I think to the hopes of a lot of U.S. men's national team fans were hoping to see him really take that chance with both hands.
But it's just the beginning, right?
Well, that's the thing. It's like he's got an injury, right? So number one, he needs to get healthy. And I think the second part is if you're healthy, you give yourself a chance to get confident again. And I think being back in Orlando, being in an environment with Pareja and around players that he knows and isn't learning name. I mean, this guy's been in positions where he's learning names. He's learning different, where he's going to live, situations like that.
Three different, sort of professional systems and tactical approaches to learn, adapt to, and attempt to succeed in his first year as a professional in three completely different environments.
And from a mental standpoint, that's all different challenges that you're not quite used to. He was a college player pretty recently, comfortable, and now it's time to really take that next step. And I think he's already shown his ceiling is crazy high. Like he can do so many different things. And I'm still hoping that happens for the national team. I think he has a big opportunity to still take that position if he can. But it's just getting back in form with the club and getting back to Orlando and sort of setting aside some of these rumors and conversations might actually be a big weight off his shoulders and allow him to focus on his form. And then the national team will come.
Julia reports that her Twitter app just crashed on her. So we love talking to Julia, and I'm sure we'll do so again next week because Orlando are steady in the top 10. They have Miami this Wednesday. I forgot to mention somehow that there are 13 games on Wednesday. Minnesota United is the only team with the night off. So let's go to number 4.
Not going to be hit today. Not going to be hit on this show. Probably. I don't think we made the top 10. But Dynamo against Austin is the one I'm looking to on Wednesday. First time. I think.
Appreciate the plug. I appreciate the plug.
Got a rep. Yeah.
Have to. Big trade for the Dynamo, by the way. Getting Corey Baird. We talked about that on Extra Time on Monday. So tune in for that one. Number 4, Seattle Sounders. Strange position for Seattle in these power rankings. Keith, are you there with us?
I am here. Yes, and. You'll have to define strange for me because when you add up everything that Seattle have gone through, we're still in a pretty good position considering the players and the games that they've missed so far this season.
No, that's fair. We've been praising them for everything. I'm just saying it's
Tell him,
strange
Keith.
because
Tell
it's
him.
been number one for so long. It's a mini blip right now. Is that fair to say? And that's just sort of the reality of the Sounders world, but also look, the reality of a lot of teams around the league's world. Maybe not with the best 11 missing, but with the big contributors gone.
Yeah, I mean, I would call it a mini blip. I think the loss at San Jose at the weekend was one of those games where the Sounders had the better chances in the first half, concede right on the stroke of halftime. And if you've watched us this year, I think it's safe to say that, we've missed the creativity of Nico Ladero. You missed the pacing behind of Jordan Morris. Christian Roldan is away on international duty. So it was one of those games. Once San Jose had the first goal, and I know everyone talks about San Jose being aggressive and stepping, but they sat back and they allowed Sounders to have the ball and dared us to break them down, almost not respecting that we had the ability to do that. And I think Sounders' success this year has come in transition play. And the weekend loss, it was a difficult one, but again, you get that early goal. Rui Diaz had a chance, Atencio had a chance, Reed Baker Whiting had a chance, and it's a different result. But yeah, I mean, look, you lose a couple of games on the bounce, people are going to start talking, but there has to be perspective. We had on our pregame, we talked about Jordan Morris and Nico Ladero for the first time this season. We talked about their absences, and the last 2 seasons they've been involved in 70 of the 94 goals that the Sounders have scored. So I don't know how other teams would do without that output.
Keith, with the international absences and the injuries that have kind of piled on all at once, and a lot of clubs are going through this, but Schmetzer's placed his trust in a lot of young players who have gotten a lot of meaningful minutes and have done quite well. Who amongst that group has caught your eye or impressed you?
I think Josh Atencio would be the one that would really stand out. I think his ability to cover ground in the middle of midfield. I think physically he's probably the most ready of those young players as well. I think the fact that he dropped into centre back against Austin and looked so comfortable, it helps that Austin don't play with a striker, I guess. But, Atencio would be the one that would stand out. I think Reed Baker Whiting, we've seen flashes and he's going to continue to improve. But, if I had to pick one of the guys, I think the coaching staff and the players would agree that Josh Atencio has been the big surprise this year, and is one that even when players get back and are fit and ready to go, I still think Josh Atencio is going to play a part.
Do you think, Keith, that there is a scenario in which we see a Sounders team, maybe not the very end of the season, but with let's say a month to go to get some rhythm going, that has Nico, Rui Diaz, Jordan Morris, and Steph Fry in it? Is that possible on the timelines that they're on?
Wow, it would be incredible. I think Jordan is the big question there because of the timing of his injury, and you think about what that injury is and how long it generally takes to get back. So that's the biggest worry. I think Steph is on a good path. I think Nico's on a good path, and they'll be back. But yeah, Jordan is the one that I would say, if you were to ask me if that was going to happen, I would say no. And the reason why I would say no is because Jordan Morris, I would expect, given it's a second time as well, he's going to be out a little bit longer.
All right, let's finish with this one. What are the odds, and I'm asking a lot of odds questions here, that there's a going away party for Gonzalo Pineda soon?
Oh man, don't do this to me. I love Gonzo. So it's one of those things. You love Gonzo, you love having him around, but also you do understand that at some stage Gonzalo Pineda is going to be a top class head coach in MLS or in Liga MX, and there's going to be a lot of interest. So I'm not surprised. Atlanta United have asked to speak with him. I hope that he remains with the Sounders, but if he does get to go somewhere, I wish him all the best because he's just an incredible, not just a coach, but an incredible person as well.
Nothing but respect for Gonzalo Pineda. It's just a matter of time for him to get that opportunity. Completely agree. Dallas in Seattle on Wednesday. You're doing the scouting reports, I'm assuming, on Dallas. What stands out to you right now with them?
Well, I think the way they played over the last 2 weeks, again, with young players coming in, I think Ricardo Pepe just gives them a finished product in the final third. They're brimming with confidence. They'll look at our results and say, hey, we can go there and get a result. I think Dallas might be a little bit more open. than San Jose. So I think that might play into the hands of Seattle's, tactics. But 2 weeks ago, you would have asked me, I would have said no brainer. Now it becomes a much more difficult game. And, again, I mentioned the absences. That it still doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. You still have to get results. And, losing 3 or 4, you have to get back on track. It's a home game. And I would expect the Sounders to get back on track.
They're below 2 points per game now, but they're still second in those Supporter Shield standings right now, 4 in the power rankings. Keith Costigan, check him out on the broadcast. Keith, appreciate your time, man. Great to chat.
Thanks, guys.
All right, Sporting Kansas City comes in at number 3. Nate Bukaty is going to join us here. I think Nate is on the line. So, Nate, feel free to unmute yourself whenever you're here, man. Down a spot to 3 are Sporting. Lost at home to that FC Dallas team that we just talked about. A couple homegrowns getting the goal for Dallas. Paxton Pomykal early on, and then Jesus Ferreira. You there, Nate? Oh, I hear you, yes. But not when you have the mute on.
I wasn't the only one, Weeby.
I know, dude.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Sometimes I feel like I'm running a little bit of like a tech help desk on these Twitter spaces.
Hey, I just got so nervous following Keith Costigan. That's big shoes to fill, so I feel like I got to bring it.
Yeah, got a lot of FS1 play-by-plays. Got a lot of top guys coming on this one. Where's Kansas City at for you? Do you want to argue about PK calls and Daniel Shalhoub, or where do you want to take this, Nate?
I tell you what, there have been some controversial ones here lately, but the one this past week that had Jacob Peterson and I a little more bemused was the yellow card that he got. I don't think either of us thought there was a penalty there, but it seemed like it was a pretty eyebrow-raising yellow card for simulation for Daniel Shalhoub. So he's at the center of a lot of it lately, it seems like.
Hey, can I ask you, though, because I was kind of reading the tea leaves and Sporting KC Twitter before this match, and this is Dallas's first away win of the year, I believe, maybe even away points. I'll have to look that up here as I talk to you, but this is a disappointing loss for Kansas City.
There's no question about it. It's interesting, guys, and I asked Jacob Peterson, how do you explain what happened here, considering Sporting had been on an 11-game unbeaten streak at home, winning a couple of big road games, and they're playing against a team that was 0-7 on the road, and they lose the game. How do you explain it? And I think you guys will appreciate Jacob's answer was simply MLS. That's kind of the way it works in this league. But, hey, FC Dallas, you have to give credit to them. They've had Sporting Kansas City's number. Luchi Gonzalez has had the recipe to frustrate Sporting Kansas City. 6 games in a row that Sporting have not been able to beat FC Dallas, and it's 0-5-1 against them. So tip of the cap to FC Dallas. They know what to do when they come to Kansas City.
Got to ask you about Shalhoub. I think Weeby is the president of his fan club. Am I right, Weeby? Is that what it's called?
Big Daniel Shalhoub guy for many, many reasons. Yes. But
I mean, he's been one of the players of the season so far. I think will be, an all-star and really deservedly so. And I know he said he didn't really want to talk too much about the past and get caught up in all that. But it really is remarkable, at least from my perspective, to see someone who had seemed to be really on the rise and then falling quite far off. And as far as confidence levels goes, as from being close to him this season, what have you seen maybe change in his demeanor or his attitude and just in his confidence levels as he's approached this season? What's changed?
So it's a fascinating story, and you're absolutely right about the way his career has gone to this point. We have talked to him about it. There was a point in the season where he finally said, look, I'm done talking about last year. But early in the season, we had a conversation with Daniel, and he told me that in the offseason, he went to Peter Vermees and said, maybe it's time for me to go somewhere else. Maybe it's just not, I need a change of scenery. It's not going to work here. And Peter basically told him, I'm not letting you off the hook that easily. You can be the guy that you were and even more. And what Peter really felt was the issue was Daniel is a guy who he's a goal scorer. And you guys have been around those types of players that their self-esteem, their confidence, everything about them is tied to whether or not they're finding the back of the net. And if they're not, then all of a sudden they can start to find themselves a little lost and wonder, what it's all about. Well, he told Daniel, if you go focus on all of the other things that help a soccer team win a game, you'll actually walk away from games in which you don't score and still feel like you helped the team win. If you do those things, then you'll start feeling better about yourself. You'll have more confidence, and then the goals will start coming. You guys, you could tell the last 2 years that his confidence was not there. He was overthinking every shot. He was caught in between whether he should pass or shoot, which direction he should try to shoot, all of those things. And this year he came into training camp and he did what Peter Vermees asked him and started focusing on all the other things, putting in tackles, tracking back defensively, making runs all over the field to create space for his teammates. And then what do you know? The goals started coming. And now I think Sporting Kansas City are getting the best of both worlds. I think that back in 2018, he was a goal scorer. Now he's a soccer player who's also scoring a lot of goals, which means he's helping the team even on the days when he doesn't score. He had the big assist that it came short. Sporting didn't get the win or a result against FC Dallas, but they fought back into that game because of the pass that he made to Johnny Russell, and he had the assist. So he's got 4 assists on the year this year as well. So I think that's the storyline, and you got to give a lot of credit to Peter Vermees for sticking with Shallowy, but you have to give Shallowy even more the credit because he listened to Peter Vermees and did what he asked, and he's turned himself into a really good player.
You got to listen. If you're a Sporting KC player, you got to listen to Peter Vermees. This is not a It's not a question. This is not a question. It feels instinctual right now, though, for Daniel, both in the goal scoring and attacking aspect, but also in the trolling opposing fans aspect. That's why I like Daniel so much. He's got some personality, man. All right, last one for you, Nate, and we'll get you out of here and keep this thing moving, get to number 1. Alan Polito is coming back. We know what that does for Sporting Kansas City. Gianluca Busio is big fat question mark. How do you think these sort of Gold Cup returns and maybe not returns affect this team through the rest of the season?
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting to see on the Busio front, right? Like we all saw the videos. We saw the post-game IG live. Shouts and Busio trying to tell everybody.
He was like, no.
That was like two brothers, man. That was hilarious. I loved that moment. What are you talking about? Get out of my face.
What we know about Peter Vermees is if and when he sells a player, he's going to reinvest that money in the club. How quickly does it happen? I don't know. But my money, guys, is on the fact that if Busio goes, he's already got a plan for how they're going to cover that by bringing somebody in. And I would guess my money would be on it happening this summer. I can't tell you who. I don't have any inside information on that. That's just me being around for the past 7 years and working closely with these guys and seeing how he does things. Peter Vermees isn't just going to sell him and pocket the money. So that's kind of where I'm looking. I'll be interested to see what they do there.
What do we do? How about with that money? Can we find a ways that Alan Polito doesn't go to El Tri duty? I don't know how we would do it, but just for Sporting Kansas City's needs, not for, Tata needs him. I'm sure Alan wants to be there, but I'm terrified every time that happens, man, that Sporting's going to lose their talisman.
Well, here's the thing. Tata needs him, but then he doesn't use him. What did he play? 15 minutes in the extra time in the game against the U.S.? I think that's the most he played in any game during that Gold Cup. And you have mixed emotions as a Sporting guy because you're like, on the one hand, well, that's good because then there's less of a chance of him being injured or worn down when he comes back. But on the other hand, they haven't had him in over a month. And is that going to be the same situation when the qualifiers come back around? You're absolutely right about that.
How does he change the team when he's there? I mean, this is already right now, I think, and the power rankings say it and the standings say it, a top 3 team in the league.
Well, he does everything that Kyrie Shelton does, and he scores goals. I actually think Kyrie Shelton's an underappreciated player in Major League Soccer. Sporting's record when he starts at the 9's incredible. He does incredible hard work. He holds up the ball. He chases things down, but he doesn't find the back of the net. And we know that's the hardest thing to find in Major League Soccer. The thing that's incredible about Polito is he does all that work and he scores. And so, yeah, when it gets to those games, the big games in the playoffs, that's why you spend the big money on Alan Polito, and that's why you want him around.
Sporting Kansas City right now, second, 2 points behind Seattle in the West, but even on points per game. They're 3 in these power rankings, down 1 spot. Lost at home to FC Dallas, who we mentioned didn't have a point on the road until this season. Thank you, Nate. We appreciate your time, man. Check him out on SKC Broadcast here in Kansas City as well on the radio, at Nate Bukaty on Twitter. Let's go to number 2, the Big Jumpers. NYCFC flying up these power rankings on the back of a 5-0
where were they
win.
last week? 3?
They were at
5?
they were at 5. They were at 5. So
Okay.
they've been rising quickly. But the funny thing with them is they don't really this is where it's the power rankings are form and not necessarily place in the standings, because they're still 4th in the East. And in the Supporter Shield rankings, they're like down 6th or 7th, but they're 2 in the power rankings. Well, that's what happens when you just beat down Orlando City 5-0 and then do the same to Columbus, Kalen. This is a team on the rise.
Yeah, no, I mean, talk about a good week, and they've done it at home. And I think, probably the most welcome sight is finding of the many who hit the back of the net is Tati Castellanos, because we had questions about saying, is his confidence there? Is he's always dangerous, but is he finding that back of the net? And he got a scrappy one actually in the Orlando City match that I just feel like got him going. And then that turns into the header off the set piece. And then from there, who knows? Now he's going to get one and run a play potentially. And just all around, I feel like this team has so many different weapons. And at a time specifically where most teams are missing players or depth is really being tested, NYCFC looks pretty comfortable, and they're missing top players as well too. James Sands, one of the big winners, I think, from the Gold Cup, coming back into the side would be huge. We know Sean Johnson, how important he is, how steady he can be. But in the attack, the wealth of options they have and getting everyone firing at once, they were just steamrolling teams.
Santiago Rodriguez now into the team. He's the new signing they had, the young guy from Uruguay for the U22 program, gets his first goal in this game. Tajuri Shradi, we're talking about goal-scoring threats. Jesus Medina. Thiago Andrade has been an absolute difference maker and a change of pace for them, literally. Yeah. I mean, the dude just runs away from people. Then you have Castellanos, and then you have Eber on the sidelines this week and say, hey, I'm pretty close to being back, actually. And then I'm not even saying Tice Magno. So you got like 6 deep in the attack, and then it all comes back to, I think, maybe the most underappreciated 10 in the league now, and maybe in the history of the league, in Maxi Morales, Kalen, because he just ties it all together. We keep talking about when it's going to end for them, when he's going to leave, and he just keeps it going. The flip side, though, of this team, and I was digging through the defensive stats for Nashville earlier, they allow the fewest shots per game to New York City and the second fewest expected goals on the season. So that really is the foundation of what they're building. What do you think the ceiling of this team is? Because with them, it's always about what can you do in the playoffs, because they've been a good regular season team for basically 5 years at this point.
Yeah, I think they have a number of Eastern Conference matchups coming up. If I'm looking at this, pulling up the schedule right now, they've got Chicago, Toronto, Chicago's
Miami
tomorrow. Yeah. So I think if they can...
Philly after that, Red Bulls, Revs, Nashville, and the Revs. Wow, okay. So we're going to learn something, huh?
Yeah, we're going to learn a lot. And as far as getting, 6-point swings, that can be really big for them to kind of use this good run of form to climb up the table. I think we mentioned James Sands coming back into the team, going to help solidify that back line. I think at times you've seen the different ways that he can build out of the back, and that helps change things for them in possession. But he proved in the Gold Cup as well that from the defensive standpoint, he's got a lot more than I think people really knew about him as far as how well he can compete. So I think they really do have a chance to make some ground up in this table right now, because the teams right above them are Nashville and Orlando. Looks like New England be tough at this point to reach. 10 points clear of New York City right now, but they're just 1 and 2 points off of Nashville and Orlando respectively. Excuse me.
With the game in hand, by the way.
Yeah, so that bodes well for them. But yeah, you're right. I think Maxi Morales is because when we've seen NYCFC not look good, it's been a bunch of individuals, right? And one player, Shradi, trying to beat somebody off the dribble, or Castellanos doing something individually. But Maxi Morales is sort of the brain in the side and helps connect all these different pieces to a cohesive system.
MVP level for years and years and years, and I think it's sort of in that Javi Mo mold of where like everybody's like, yeah, he's really good, but maybe the context, maybe the place in the league history he doesn't get, and he absolutely should. New York City at number 2, they go to Chicago. Like, I don't want to troll you Fire fans, but if you're a neutral and you want to see goals, this could be an opportunity for you to see some goals. I'm just saying. All right, number 1, maybe the best game midweek, and we talked about it earlier when we talked Nashville, because they were 6th in these, is New England, Nashville, and New England's holding on at 1. They've been there for a couple weeks now. They're the only team in Major League Soccer above 2 points per game, 2.12, which is an absurd rate in this league. 36 points from 17. almost perfect at home. Their away record, Kalen, is 5-2-3, which is, I think, more impressive. And they won comeback style late on against the Red Bulls this weekend, 3-2. Give me sort of your take on the Revs this season and the place they occupy in MLS today.
Well, I mean, when you look at championship teams, and I think this team has all of the makings of one, you have to look for a couple things. One, top end talent, and I think it's clear that this team has that. Starting with Carlos Hill, I think one of the best midfielders, clearly in the league. And then you look at Gustavo Bo, able to, the way he's able to, score make these ridiculous goals look easy. And then Tajon Buchanan, we saw what he was able to do at the Gold Cup. I think a player that's only still continuing to tap into his ceiling, so much around him. And then you need great goalkeeping. That's a big part of it. And they have the best goalkeeper in the league. So they've got a lot of pieces. And then when you start building out the roster around it, where it's, okay, you got Polster, you need solid players that are going to be difficult. Brandon Bai, you've got so many different players. I could go through the whole roster, but it's just, they have a whole, the way the team has been assembled in a short amount of time, because we have to remember, just like 2 or 3 years ago, this team did not look this way. And the way that Bruce Arena has done worked his magic has been amazing. And they just seem to find, even this past weekend against Red Bull, right? They just find a way. They just find a way late in games to always end up not just drawing matches, but getting on the right side of things and getting wins. So they've got to be favorites, especially when you look at these players from the Gold Cup coming back in form into an already.
No, it's best 11 players coming back into the team.
Yeah.
It is maybe the most terrifying winger in North America right now in Tajon, and the best goalkeeper probably as well in Matt Turner. So they're going one place. That's to the playoffs. They hope to their first MLS Cup. Jonathan Siegel, unmute yourself, man. Big congratulations to Jonathan doing yeoman's work for MLSsoccer.com for a lot of years. Got the full-timer tag here recently. So congratulations on that, Jonathan. But more importantly, you are one of the people that knows the most about the Revs and soccer in that area. What does this season represent? What does this opportunity for the club represent?
Well, thank you. Appreciate the congratulations. Yeah, I mean, it's what Kalen talked about. I mean, he kind of went A to Z with it there, of just how much the project has evolved and progressed under Bruce. I mean, it's still crazy to think about. I remember a couple years ago leaving the Gillette Stadium parking lot, and there were all those jokes about stuff with Brad Friedel and what he was saying about players in the parking lot and if they're not scared enough. And you guys talked about and covered that A to Z. But probably. Yeah, but then just to see now, I mean, there's unquestionably, or the Revs are unquestionably the top team in the league right now. To see that evolution in such a short period of time, I mean, I think everyone hoped for it when Bruce came into the role, and Kurt Anolfo and Richie Williams and Dave Vanderberg and his assistants and such. But it's happened so quickly. The DP trio of Heel, Buxa, Bo. It's incredible to watch right now. They're on a pace to rival some of those incredible DP trios we've seen with Vela, Rossi, production levels of guys like Joseph and Almiron. It's pretty incredible just the levels they're producing. And then what Kalen touched upon, the kind of secondary pieces beneath that. I don't see it slowing down anytime soon, barring anything drastic changing. I know Turner, Buchanan, we have questions there of do they come, do they go? It's all clicking right now, and it's really incredible to see.
Do you think they go? What are the odds? Because we keep debating this on the show, and every time a new transfer rumor rolls in, the Crafts aren't going to be sitting there thinking we need this money. But at some point, you have to balance that aspect of the business, but also with player ambition as well. And maybe if Tajon or Matt Turner are saying this is an offer I can't refuse, how do they balance this summer? I mean, I got to think they're just praying for the end of the transfer window in some ways.
I agree. I mean, I think also they're looking towards January. Everything that our good friend Tom Bogert and others have kind of put out there, it sounds like a January move for Tajon especially is likely. Who knows? Maybe it'll come to a situation a la Caden Clark with Red Bull Leipzig or RB Leipzig and New York Red Bulls, that it's a move that progresses in January, meaning he's already gets sold and then sticks around, as we know, on loan and temporarily for the MLS side. Turner is the interesting one, though, because I don't know if there's that that urgency right now in light of World Cup qualifying to head overseas. I don't think anybody, whether it's Revolution fans or U.S. national team fans, of course, want to see a guy like Turner. Yeah, can you guys hear me still?
Yeah, no, I'm just agreeing with you because it seems to me what you're saying is that, like we always think of opportunity maybe in more linear terms of like go to Europe. You have an offer from X league, X club, go. Whereas Matt Turner's in a situation where opportunity is twofold. It's an opportunity to start perhaps in the biggest games that he may ever play as a professional for the United States and leave a legacy in that way, or rush somewhere where he might not be playing. And we debated all about, Zach Steffen and Ethan Horvath and their club situations before this. So, yeah, that is super interesting. By the way, Tejan just had a quote from Tom Bogart on Twitter about going overseas. Quote, "It's a huge goal of mine. Hopefully I can play overseas." So he's signaling his desires. Yeah.
He's got bright eyes about it. I mean, there's undoubtedly, if I'm in Tejan's shoes, I'm seeing what a guy like Alphonso Davies did, rising in meteoric fashion through MLS. I'm not in any way likening Tejan to Alphonso Davies in terms of their talent level and such there, but there's Canadian players coming through as well. I mean, as much as we harp on so many of the American-born players, it's incredible to see also our friends north of the border and what they're doing and the talent they're developing as well.
Pretty incredible season for the Revs. I mean, right now you're looking at the MVP in Carly Seal. You're looking at probably the goalkeeper of the year in Matt Turner. And then, look, Gustavo Bo's going to have a chance at the Golden Boot, it seems like. Absolute dream for New England right now. They're number one in these power rankings. Big thanks to you, Jonathan, for joining us. Let's run through the top 10 before we get you out of here. Minnesota, Philly, LA Galaxy, Colorado, Nashville from 10 to 6. Galaxy and Colorado, the big risers there. If you missed it, go back and rewind or check YouTube for that Colorado rant that I had because they deserve more respect. Orlando, Seattle, Kansas City, New York City, and New England. 5 through 1. Those are your power rankings for MLS Week 16. Big thanks if you watched on YouTube.